Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're doing factoring. Again, we're doing factoring with a number in front of the x squared. So it's going to be a little more guess and check, a little more maybe doing the problem wrong once before you get it right. Whenever we do factoring, we have to do what? What is the first step? Yes, ma'am. Put the parentheses there. Okay? We know there's going to be an x for each one, but I'm leaving some space because there's going to have to be numbers in front of the x squared. Everything I write in red, we might change. This is the guess color, okay? So if you're writing in pen, write lightly when I write in pen. So the first thing I'm going to do, because I've got that number in front of x squared, I'm going to think of all the factors of 2. What times what gives me 2? 1 times 2 or 2 times 1. That's it. Now I'm going to go to the other side. What numbers multiply together to give me 3? 1 times 3 or 3 times 1. Now here's where it gets tricky. I need it to add or subtract together to get -7. But I have to times one of these numbers by 2. So this is my guess part. All right, let's say we multiply the first one times 2. What's 1 times 2? Is 2 and 3 ever going to give me 7? No. Okay, so that won't work. So let's try 3 times 2. 3 times 2 gives me what? 6. 6 and 1 gives me 7. So that's good. So I know if I put my 2 here and my 1 here, I want to multiply my 2 by 3. Where should the 3 go if I want to multiply that 2 by 3? In the second one, remember? We go first, outside. Okay? So my 3 goes here, my 1 goes here. Now the hard part is figuring out where my adding, my negative, and my positive go. Okay, 3 is positive, but 7 is negative. So do I want to have 2 pluses, 1 plus, 1 minus, or 2 minuses? A negative times a negative is a? But if you add a negative and a negative, you get a negative. So that's why we want them both to be negative. Now I'm going to go through and FOIL it to make sure I have the right answer. First, 2x times 1x is 2x squared. Outside, 2x times -3 is -6x. Inside, -1 times 1x is -1x. -1 times -3 is a +3, so I get 2x squared minus 7x plus 3. So I know now that I have the right numbers. Do you guys see that when we have a number in front of the x, it's more important to check? So you probably are going to want to check for these. Okay, I'm going to move on to example 2. We've got 3n squared plus 14n minus 5. Okay? What is my first step whenever I'm factoring? We're going to make what? Parentheses. Good. We're going to put n's for them, but now we're going to do our guess and check. What numbers go there? What signs? What numbers at the ends? What is my next step after I've made my parentheses? Factors of what? 3. That number in front. 1 and 3 or 3 and 1 are my only options. Okay, let's look at 5. We've got 1 and 5 or 5 and 1. Our tricky part again, remember, is one of them has to be multiplied by 3. So let's try the 1 first. 1 times 3 is 3. 3 and 5, is that ever going to make 14? No. Okay, let's try the next one. 5 times 3 is what? Can 15 and 1 make 14? What would it be? 15 minus 1. Yeah. Okay, so if I put my 3 here and my 1 here, I know I want to multiply my 3 by 5. Where do I put my 5? So it'll be multiplied by 3. The second one. Okay, now again, the tricky part. Where am I going to put my negatives or my positives? Which one will have to be positive? positive or negative? Positive. So we have to do 15 minus 1 gives me 14. So which one has to be negative? The 1. Okay, let's boil it out to make sure it works. 3n times 1n is 3n squared. 3n times 5 is positive 15n. Negative 1 times 1n is negative 1n. And negative 1 times negative 5 is a negative 5. 15 minus 1 is 14n. This matches the top. We've checked it correctly, so we know that these numbers work. All right, we're going to go to the next page. Ready? I've changed your problem, so please change it as well. It's 4x squared plus 12x minus 7. 4x squared plus 12x minus 7. Your first step when factoring, Cheyenne, is to do what? The parentheses. Thank you. What should our second step be? Finding factors of 4, that number in front. We've got 1 and 4, 4 and 1, but what else do we have? 2 and 2. Then we go and find factors of the last number. We've got 1 and 7 or 7 and 1. Let's try 1 and 4 first. If we multiply 4 times 1, what do I get? Is 4 and 7 ever going to give me 12? No, it'll give you 11. All right, so that won't work. Let's try 4 times 7. Gives me 28. Is 28 and 1 ever going to give me? No. So we know the 4s and the 1s don't work. So let's try some 2s. 7 times 2 gives me 14. 2 times 1 gives me 2. 14 minus 2 gives me 12. So I know it works. So I'm going to put a 2x here and a 2x here. And I've got 7 and 1. Shouldn't matter which way they go because you're multiplying both of them by 2. But then the tricky part is, where do I put the negative sign? How do I know one of them is going to be negative? Because that 7 is negative. So which one do I want to be negative? I want to get a positive 12. Okay? If I want a positive 12, that means which has to be positive, the 14 or the 2? The 14 has to be positive, so the 2 has to be negative. So what times 2x would give me 2x? 1. So the 1 is going to have to be negative, so I get negative 2x. Let's FOIL it out to make sure it works. 2x times 2x is 4x squared. 2x times negative 1 is negative 2x. 7 times 2x is 14x. 7 times negative 1 is negative 7. We get 4x squared plus 12x minus 7. Let's set up our word problem and then we can be done. Okay, you guys should know for all of these, and whenever they talk about initial velocity, you might want to, it's written on some of your notes tops, but you might want to have this written down. They're talking about negative 16t squared plus vt plus s, always, when they talk about velocity. In this case, it says your initial velocity is 46. Initial velocity is always v. And it says my initial height, which is s, is 6. All we're going to do is plug this in. Negative 16t squared plus 46t plus 6, not s. And when do you think this would be done? An athlete throws a disc from a height of 6 feet with initial velocity of 46 feet per second. When would this be done? When the discus is where? If I'm throwing the discus, when it falls, it's like a round circle frisbee type thing, except it's heavier. They use it. They do it in the Olympics. Okay. So when it hits the ground, what would the height be? All right. So ladies and gentlemen, your homework is on the board. Page 606, 20 through 38, even and 42. Okay, that is due tomorrow. It's all about factoring with numbers in front of your x squared.